Hello, and welcome to the Labor Standards Pre-Construction Requirements Training module. Attachments referenced within this presentation are periodically updated. Make sure to use the attachments in the most current version of the CDBG Implementation Handbook available on our website. A link to the website is toward the end of this presentation on the Helpful Website slide. Now that we have determined labor standards applies to your CDBG project, what is the next step? The next step is ensuring that the pre-construction labor standards requirements are followed. This includes designating your labor standards officer, securing the federal wage determination, incorporation of bid packet requirements, ensuring contractor eligibility, inclusion of construction contract requirements, and holding an optional pre-construction conference. We will consider the first 7 items: federal wage determination, wage decision modifications, bid notifications, contractor eligibility clearance, construction contract, additional labor classifications, and pre-construction conference in this training module. The last 2 items, compliance monitoring and compliance enforcement, occur during construction and will be covered in another training module. An early step is designating your labor standards officer. The labor standards officer is responsible for all the items discussed on the previous slide: securing the federal wage determination, incorporation of bid packet requirements, ensuring contractor eligibility, inclusion of construction contract requirements, and holding an optional pre-construction conference, which all occur prior to construction, as well as compliance monitoring and compliance enforcement, which occur during the construction phase. If a labor standards officer is not designated, the UGLUG must serve in that capacity by default, and the responsible individual in that capacity would be the chief elected official. Unless your chief elected official is willing and able to complete these responsibilities, please formally designate a different person to serve as a labor standards officer. The labor standards officer is most commonly an employee of the UGLUG or a third-party consultant. Use the labor standards officer designation form, which is attachment 7C in the implementation handbook, to name the labor standards officer prior to or at the time of requesting a wage decision, and submit to your assigned project representative. The labor standards officer must secure the appropriate wage rates, formally referred to as the federal wage decision, for use in the project prior to advertising for construction bids and prior to bid opening. The wage determination and corresponding decision indicate the type of construction that will take place and the rates the construction workers will need to be paid. This information will help prospective bidders assemble their bid packets, as the construction workers they employ will need to be paid wages and benefits according to the federal wage decision. There are 4 construction types, or categories of construction work, known as wage determinations, under which all wage decisions are organized. These 4 wage determinations are residential, building, highway, and heavy. Residential is defined as single-family homes and apartment buildings of no more than 4 stories. This determination relates to housing projects. Building is defined as sheltered enclosures for the purpose of housing people, machinery, equipment, or supplies. This includes libraries, senior centers, community centers, fire stations, and would also include housing projects of more than 4 stories. The highway category is just that: highways, roads, streets, sidewalks, and parking areas. The heavy category is a catch-all category and has 2 subcategories. The heavy determination has a general subcategory and a water-sewer subcategory. The general heavy subcategory includes bridges, dams, dredging and irrigation projects, and tunnels. The other subcategory is for sewer and water line and tunnel projects, including water and sewer mains and interceptors. That determination specifically is WI-8. Some projects do not neatly fall into one category, and it may be appropriate to use multiple determinations if the additional category or categories is substantial. particularly more than 20% of the project cost or more than $1 million. Davis-Bacon wage rates are available online at wdol.gov. To search these wage rates, go to www.wdol.gov and selecting DBA WDs under the Davis-Bacon Act. Then select Wisconsin under State and select the county the project is located in. If the project is located in multiple counties, contact your project representative for a determination on which county to use. Click on Search, and this will give you all the wage determinations for that county. Finally, select the wage determination or determinations that is appropriate for the work being completed. Once you have determined which wage determinations and decisions apply to the project, submit the Record of Wage Decision Selection Form, Attachment 7D in the Implementation Handbook, to your assigned project representative. Your project representative will review the selection. The term wage determination is defined as including not only the original decision, but any subsequent decisions modifying, superseding, correcting, or otherwise changing the rates and scope of the original decision. The terms wage determination and wage decision are often used interchangeably. Both refer to the wage rates applicable to the project. If the UGLUG fails to include the correct wage decision in the contract, the UGLUG must obtain the correct wage decision and advise the contractors they must pay those wage rates retroactive to the beginning of the project. In this case, the UGLUG is responsible for ensuring all wage restitution or underpayments are made to construction workers and may be forced to reimburse the contractor for the added cost resulting from the payment of the federally determined wages. Wage decisions are modified by the Department of Labor Friday at 10 a.m. Most decisions are not modified every week, but they could be. Any wage modifications that occur prior to the bid opening are subject to the project. You must check the wage decision prior to bid opening to ensure that it has not been updated or modified. If the wage decision has been modified, you are responsible for using the current wage rates for the project and must notify potential bidders that the decision has been modified. For this reason, it is recommended that bid openings not be held on Fridays. This allows time to inform potential bidders of the modification so the contractor can revise their bid. Just a reminder, if the UGLUG fails to use the most current wage decision, the UGLUG may be responsible for all wage restitution to affected construction workers. This is what the federal wage determination looks like. At the top is the general decision number. When the decision number is completed on the Record of Wage Decision Selection Form, it is this number. The number in this example is WI 170008. The first two items are the state, and the next two are the year. This decision was from 2017. The last number, or two numbers if there are two numbers, refers to the construction type and county. Next is the modification date. This determination was modified 2/3/2017, and it was modification 1 as noted in the middle of the page. Going back to the top, WI 8 is the wage determination. The decision number is WI 170008, effective 2/3/2017. Make sure the construction type you need is listed. This construction type is heavy with the subcategory of sewer and water line and tunnel. Below that, make sure the appropriate county is listed for the project location. This determination is for the entire state of Wisconsin. Many of the determinations for residential and building are by county or a group of counties. The modification number and effective date are listed in the middle. Below that are the wage rates. Some job titles will be listed numerous times because that rate applies to only certain counties. For example, a bricklayer on the project in which this decision applies would have a rate of $37.04 with fringes of 1970 in Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, and Iron counties. However, a bricklayer in Crawford, Jackson, Juneau, La Crosse, Monroe, Trempealeau, and Vernon counties, which is right above it, would have a rate of 3184 with fringes of 2095. Most decisions are many pages and cover many job titles in many different counties, so be careful. Please note, the job title doesn't have to be exactly the same as long as the type of work is. A bricklayer might be called a brick journeyman by a contractor or a brick craftsman by a different contractor, and that's okay as long as the type of work is the same as that of a bricklayer. Bid advertisements must include a notice that the Davis-Bacon wage rates apply to the project. See Attachment 7H, Advertisements for Bid, for more information. The UGLUG must include the wage determination, related provisions, equal opportunity language, and contractor clearance in your bid documents, including the Conflict of Interest Disclosure and Clause. See Attachments 3B and 3C for the recommended forms. Lobbying Certification Form, Attachment 3D. Disclosure of Lobbying Activities Form, Attachment 3E, if applicable. Section 3 Contract Language Requirements, Attachment 6B. Davis-Bacon and Related Acts, DBRA, Attachment 7B. Federal Labor Standards Provisions, HUD 4010, Attachment 7G. And the Federal Davis-Bacon Wage Decisions. Inclusion by reference is not acceptable. These items must be included in all bid packages for construction. There are additional provisions required for construction contracts estimated to exceed $10,000. We recommend including these in all bid packets, especially if the expected amount is slightly less than the $10,000 threshold. These include the Equal Opportunity Clause, EO 11246, Attachment 6A, Affirmative Action Requirements, EO 11246, Attachment 6C, Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Clauses, Construction Contract Specifications, EO 11246, Attachment 6D, and the MBE WBE DBE Web Resources, Attachment 7R. See Chapter 6 for more information on the Equal Opportunity and Section 3 provisions. If the UGLUG opens a bid and waits more than 90 days to award the construction contract, the UGLUG must check the wage decision to see if it has been modified or superseded. If it has, the UGLUG must use the modified wage decisions for the CDBG project. This only applies if bids are opened but a contract is not awarded within 90 days of the bid opening. If the UGLUG waits 90 days or less to award a contract, then the wage decisions applicable at the time of bid opening apply to the CDBG project. As we learned in the What Are Labor Standards and Why Is It Important training module, contractors and individuals can be suspended or debarred from participating in federally funded projects. Once the lowest responsible bidder has been identified, the UGLUG must ensure the contractor is eligible to participate in federally funded projects. The UGLUG must do this for every prime contract. Although the prime contractor is responsible for ensuring all subcontractors are eligible to work on federally funded projects, we strongly recommend the UGLUG do a check on all subcontractors as well. Keep all contractor eligibility clearance search results in the labor standards file. The date on these results should be prior to or at the time of contractor award, or when the prime informs the UGLUG or labor standards officer of subcontractors on the project. If a contractor or subcontractor has been debarred, contact your program representative immediately. Every entity involved in the project must confirm it is not debarred. This includes the UGLUG, contractors, architectural or engineering, and grant administration services. No entity may have an active suspension or debarment from participating in a federally funded project at the time the contract is signed. To check for debarment, go to sam.gov prior to executing the contract and select Search Records. In the Quick Search field, enter the business name, owner's name, DUNS number or cage code, and click Search. We recommend at least 2 separate searches. One should be the business name and also ideally the owner, president, or CEO name. When the search results appear, select both the active and inactive registrant status options in the Filter Results box and click Apply Filters. A green entity marker denotes that the contractor is eligible to work on the project. Firms with a purple exclusion marker require further review. The purple exclusion record does not necessarily indicate that the firm is currently debarred. It is an indicator of a current or past debarment. The View Details section will indicate dates of debarment or exclusion. Even if a firm has a past suspension that is no longer active and is currently eligible to participate on a federally funded project, you may want to pay special attention to the contractor depending on the details of the past suspension. Click Save PDF to save and print the results pages, and keep evidence of the completed debarment checks in the Labor Standards file. Firms that do not have a record are assumed to not be debarred. Even print search records that come up with no firm or person by that name to prove the search was completed. These required notices and attachments are applicable to all contracts, including the prime, subcontractors, and subcontractors of subcontractors. UGLUGs must include the wage determinations, related provisions, equal opportunity language, and contractor clearance language in your construction contract documents, including the Conflict of Interest Disclosure and Clause. See attachments 3B and 3C for recommended forms, the Lobbying Certification Form, Attachment 3D, Disclosure of Lobbying Activities Form, Attachment 3E, if applicable, Section 3 Contract Language Requirements, Attachment 6B, Davis-Bacon and Related Acts, DBRA, Attachment 7B, Federal Labor Standards Provisions, HUD 4010, Attachment 7G, and the Federal Davis-Bacon Wage Decision or Decisions. Inclusion by reference is not acceptable. There are additional provisions required for construction contracts that exceed $10,000. We recommend including these in all contracts, especially if the contract amount is slightly less than the $10,000 threshold, because one modification or change order could put the contract amount over $10,000. By adding these provisions in the original contract, they will not need to be added later if the contract does exceed the $10,000 threshold at a later date. These attachments include the Equal Opportunity Clause, EO 11246, Attachment 6A, Affirmative Action Requirements, EO 11246, Attachment 6C, Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Clauses, Construction Contract Specifications, EO 11246, Attachment 6D, and the MBE, WBE, DBE Web Resources, Attachment 7R. Also recommended but not required are the pre-construction meeting items and checklist, which are Attachments 7I and 7J in the Implementation Handbook. This once again gives the contractor notice that federal labor standards apply and what is expected to prove compliance. It will give them the opportunity to set up their files, prepare for the pre-construction meeting, and bring any questions to that meeting. A table in the Procurement and Contracting Chapter 3, is a great reference tool to determine which attachments are required in construction contracts. It is also a helpful tool for contracts that are for professional services and other non-construction contracts. It is the last page of Chapter 3, Procurement and Contracting, before the attachments. Many prime contractors subcontract some of the work out to other contractors called subcontractors. In addition, these subcontractors may also choose to contract some of this work out to other subcontractors. All subcontracts also have requirements. All subcontracts must be in writing and must include the name of the subcontractor, the dollar amount of the contract, goods and services to be provided, and terms and conditions. All subcontracts must contain all items listed on the previous slides. Attachments may be omitted if they are not applicable to the project, such as if the subcontract is less than $10,000. However, we still recommend adding these equal opportunity provisions as previously stated. Inclusion by reference is not acceptable. The required attachments must physically be included in the contract. Many communities or prime contractors simply write the subcontractor's name, bid price, and so forth into the blank spaces in a copy of the bid package, and this practice is acceptable pending it is signed by all parties. Executed subcontracts with all attachments and addendums must be kept in the CDBG project file. These provisions apply to any and all lower tier subcontractors, for example, a subcontractor of a subcontractor as well. Additional labor classifications are needed when a category of worker on the job does not fit into any of the classifications listed on the wage decision. If you or your contractors come across this occurrence, the Labor Standards Officer should contact your project representative first. Your project representative will review the missing classification and tell you what the next step or steps are. If it is determined that an additional classification is needed, these steps should be followed. First, the contractor must send a letter to the Labor Standards Officer informing them of the situation. It may be helpful for this letter to include pertinent information such as the worker's existing and proposed rate of pay and benefits, and if available, the same category of worker rate of pay and benefits for a nearby county if one exists. After discussing the issue with the assigned project representative, the Labor Standards Officer will complete boxes 2 through 10 on the additional classification report, which is attachment 7E in the implementation handbook, and submit this documentation to the assigned project representative. The Decker project representative will review the documentation and submit to HUD. HUD reviews and submits to DOL. DOL reviews and makes the determination. Then DOL informs HUD. HUD contacts Decker. Decker contacts the Labor Standards Officer, and the Labor Standards Officer informs the contractor. As you can see, this can be a lengthy process. Please also be aware, DOL will not review or respond to any requests for additional classifications until a contract is awarded. UGLUGs are strongly encouraged to hold a pre-construction conference to ensure that all contractors and subcontractors understand the wage decisions and requirements. The conference should cover the items listed in Attachment 7I, Pre-Construction Conference, Items to be Discussed. Also provide contractors with a copy of Attachment 7J, Pre-Construction Checklist for Contractors. Equal opportunity provisions of the contract should also be discussed. Contractors are encouraged to use the listings of certified MBEs, WBEs, and disadvantaged business enterprises as a subcontractor or a supplier and provide them with the MBE, WBE, DBE resources, which is Attachment 7R. If the contractor has previously worked on a CDBG project and you are confident that the firm understands federal labor standards, equal opportunity, and how to document compliance, you can abbreviate discussion of those items in the pre-construction meeting. Keep a record of the pre-construction conference proceedings and attendees and place a copy in the Labor Standards file. Attachment 7K, Pre-Construction Report format, is a template for the pre-construction meeting minutes and proceedings, but is not required. Recorded proceedings in a different format will be accepted. If the UGLUG decides not to hold a pre-construction conference, be sure to provide contractors with the required documents. It is also recommended to keep a record of such correspondence. These are some helpful websites relating to labor standards. Wage Determinations Online is where the wage determinations and decisions can be found. System for Award Management is a site to look up contractor eligibility. The bottom link is the CDBG Implementation Handbook by Decker, and that is where all chapters and attachments are available. These links are subject to change. Please contact your assigned project representative with any questions. You may also contact us at doacdbg@wisconsin.gov.